Hi friends! Welcome to day 2 of the Best of 2021 week series. We are covering Complexion today, and I know it might have been strange to start with the cheek products, but I was really enthusiastic about it, okay? We'll now go into the foundations, the powders, and everything else in between. But if it's your first time here, hi! I'm Alicia. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. And if you are returning, well, thank you for visiting me again. Kinky Sweat stands for my kinky hair and sweat life. I'm a fitness professional who loves things, all movement and beauty. If you want to check out what I do in between the makeups, you can head over to my Instagram. If you want to check out my flexibility classes, see what the schedule is holding, well, please sign up for my newsletter down below. If I look a little bright, it is very cloudy outside and I am relying on artificial light to brighten it up. The B-roll, however, has natural and artificial light. I go in between the two and I will let you know what you are seeing, but we're gonna have a little spotlight for the talking portion, okay? What a year for foundation. I feel a lot of foundation released in 2021, but this was the category that I had the most restraint with. I love foundation. I think the process of discovering your best formula, shade, undertone, it's very, how do I say, time consuming, and every time you get a little closer to that ideal product, you just keep buying more and want to experiment more. However, I do find that keeping foundation products longer than a year could be a little dicey, especially if said product contains an oil, if it starts to spoil. With powders and eyeshadows and other products of that formulation, when you keep them in a dark, cool place, they last longer than the suggested 12-month shelf life. But with foundations, it could be a little dicey, you know? That's why I held back on a lot of product releases, and I have 10 products that I absolutely loved for the duration of the year. I kept using, I was cocktailing them, and also started to integrate more powder foundation products. So let's start off with what I think might be the most exciting complexion product for me for the year that really upped a lot of my foundations in terms of providing that radiance, that soft focus blurring effect. It is without a doubt Samantha Ravndal's new brand AURIC Radiant Glow Lust. Excuse me, someone was using this product. I did not realize that Samantha had released new shades. So at the time of the launch, I believe she only had 5. I bought like 4. Pyrite was said to be for medium skin tones. It did work for me. It was a lovely glow on the cheekbones, and I did mix it with my other foundations. I did mix Citrine, which had a more tan golden color, with foundations that I needed to look more warmer on my skin tone. Excuse me, warmer, not more grammar. But then I saw she had Sandstone. This was more towards medium tan, and this is my ideal shade for the AURIC. I consider AURIC to be Charlotte Tilbury's Hollywood Flawless Filter. I love that product as well. I use the heck out of it, from wearing it on my cheekbones for highlight or mixing it with my favorite foundation to give that overall complexion glow. But I really enjoy the AURIC for just the attention to the shades, yes, but to have a pearl finish works so well with different foundations, and for my skin to be left with just a beautiful sheen and glow that does not look sparkly or glittery on the skin. It doesn't look artificially shimmery. It mixed well with a lot of the foundations I cocktailed it with, and I enjoy the fact that I can alter the color a little bit. So the foundations that were way too light solo, I mixed it with the Citrine. It gave me the right type of warmth, but it also gave me that soft focus blur effect. If I wanted more highlight on my cheekbones, and I went with either selenite or pyrite. So there were just a lot of opportunities for me to play with this product. The bottle is gorgeous. It's all frosted glass. You have the black cap with like the gold dripping down the sides. Anytime I applied my foundation, I got excited because I get to use the AURIC. And yes, not very travel friendly. That will be my one critique. And it's just a matter of finding the right travel doohickey, if you will, to bring this along for the ride. But this is an important product for my complexion routine because Foundations now on their own have just accelerated their technology in terms of it not just providing coverage. You're getting coverage, you're getting skincare, you're getting, again, soft focus, you're getting blurring, okay, all in one bottle. I do think, like mascaras, kind of have to mix and match. Not one product is going to do everything for you, and the AURIC is just going to give you that little extra punch of glow. It definitely elevates the complexion in a way that, whether found on a photo or video, anytime I saw footage of myself with the AURIC on, I'm like, I gotta wear this more often, bruh. Like, I look smooth. And even here, purposefully filming B-roll with all the breakout moment that I have right now, it still just blends beautifully into the skin, and definitely one of the highlights for me in terms of the complexion category for 2021. I'm happy that I bought Sunstone. This is a better skin tone match for me, and now to have it with my other foundations, to mix it with the other AURIC shades, I'm so excited. Up next, we have the Fenty Beauty Eaze Drop Blurring Skin Tint. Now, the first Fenty Beauty foundation I liked. I hated that it had fragrance. I tolerated it because it was Rihanna's first makeup brand. Oh my gosh, 40 shades on the first drop, blah, blah, blah. Over time, I realized that this wasn't the right foundation for me. With the soft matte foundation, you run into possibly having dry looking skin. It's a tough texture, or rather finish, to cover a slew of different skin conditions. I think the Eaze Drop Blur Tint was one of the best foundation drops for Fenty Beauty in that it was very lightweight. Definitely one up from a tinted moisturizer. It wasn't a soft matte dry down. I would think this more like a satin matte, depending on your skin type. It definitely wasn't dewy, but it wasn't completely matte. I thought it was a nice middle ground finish. Great for the summertime too, because I found myself not wearing foundation often during that season. And sometimes I love a product to just give me evenness, right? It's not so much coverage, but just to bring all the different colors of my complexion together as one. And I think that's what the Eaze Drop did for me. And sometimes I would mix it with the AURIC, or I will mix it with a powder foundation, which I will cover down the line. But I appreciate the lightweight nature of it, the fact that you can apply it with your fingers, you can apply it with the sponge, although I wouldn't recommend it since it's already light coverage to begin with, and sponges do take away quite a bit of product. I would usually apply this again with fingers or with one of my buffer brushes, whether it be a synthetic one or a natural hair one. It blends into the skin well, and I think the finish left behind is a natural one with closer to a soft matte dry down, and it had that blurring effect on me, I thought. And if I wanted more coverage on my blemishes, then I would just rely on concealer. But I really did enjoy this product. I thought, again, really easy to travel with, easy to integrate with my other complexion products. So happy I purchased that when it dropped. It was very tough to find my shade because a lot of shades were sold out and stayed out of stock for quite some time. This is in the shade number 10, and you can see on the footage that is quite light, but I adjust it with powder foundation now or other foundations just to kind of adjust the color a little bit, but it was definitely a staple for me throughout the year. Next up, we have the Shiseido Radiant Lifting Synchro Skin Foundation. Its counterpart, the self-refreshing Synchro Skin, was a hit. I mean, talk about a beautifully formulated soft matte foundation that did not look soft matte. It just looked like your skin, but better, but a foundation with the right amount of coverage. Shiseido came out with, I think, something that was more satin, and I could honestly say when I first used this foundation, I immediately detected like this, I'm going to say the word tacky, and I know that has bad connotations, but hear me out. It had like a tackiness that I felt fused with my skin, and it made my skin look creamy. It was also really nice to blend in. The texture almost gave me like some feedback in terms of how much blending I had to go. It was quite remarkable, and the finish was noteworthy. great coverage, a little went a long way, and the fact that it was more satin in the dry down and still had reasonable staying power. And this was where I was still wearing a mask at the gym and working out. Now, granted, given those circumstances, there was somewhere with where the mask wore, right? Understandable. But considering that it was very little, I thought that was some bonus points. The color also I really love. Still light on me now. I mix it with the AURIC or with another foundation with the Lisa Eldridge. I was very impressed with this texture. And I know this was not the favorite with many. I think generally there was more positive feedback with the self-refreshing formula, the more soft matte one. But I do love the satin finish from the Radiant Lifting. I think it looked more skin-like in finish. It had, as the title suggests, more of a radiance, but that was not overly shiny or dewy. It didn't look overly glossy. It just had a beautiful glow all over the complexion. I was just astonished by the finish. Hey, Shadow. That's never happened to me before. Oh, it's so dark outside. I'm so sorry. But the texture my skin was left in after blending the Radiant Lifting out was what I was most impressed with. I'm always excited to use it because, again, I can't wait for that creamy feel when I blend it out and when I'm done. So I have to give it up to Shiseido because being a Japanese brand and this foundation technology they always put out and just nail, I always have to be part of it. That's all I'm saying. The LYS Triple FIXX Serum Foundation. I would actually consider this to be very similar to the Shiseido Radiant Lifting. However, this has lighter coverage. It has more of an emollient feel to it. Definitely not soft matte. It's, I think, really formulated to deliver a true to skin like finish without looking dry, without looking too shiny on the skin, on the complexion. It had a similar feel of like that creaminess that the Shiseido gave. This definitely left my skin looking milky, like just smooth when I applied it. And I really love this now during the winter time. I thought that the moisture that it provided, that hydration, was a little much for me over the summertime. In NYC, it can get hot and humid, and the LYS, although supposed to be lightweight in texture, totally get it. There's a little bit of that dewiness I felt that I didn't think dried down completely unless I applied a powder on top, and I was trying to skip that step because I didn't want to apply so much makeup when it was uncomfortably hot like that. So that's why now I apply it during the winter when my skin is a lot drier, and I don't even have to set this with powder. I go in because I have to adjust the color a little bit because still I'm not that same TN3, but I don't rely on the powder now like I did over the summertime to set down the dewiness. This now just brings me more of like a satin matte finish, which I enjoy. I think it feels good on the skin. My skin feels nourished. And again, it's nice just to have like a more lightweight foundation that gives you a little more than the tinted moisturizer, a little more than the Eaze drop. Definitely nice to have that ranking as an option in my foundation collection because I like to mix it up. Sometimes I like to go medium coverage, heavy coverage. Light coverage I think is hard to nail, and LYS's Triple FIXX Serum Foundation I think targeted that part of the foundation hierarchy, if you will. And now we get into the powder foundations. I got two for you, but we'll start off with the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Soft Matte Powder Foundation. This is in the shade 280. A little light, but actually funny. At the time I first bought 300, people were helping me out trying to figure out my shade match, and they were like, you gotta get 280. I got 280 and it's good. It's a little light for me now. Fine. I apply it on the center of my face, but even when applying it all over is not too bad. What I loved about the Fenty was it was very smooth, still is, like I'm dyed or something, is very smooth on the skin, undetectable. When you buff this in, you don't see powder foundation. You just see your skin, but with a little more coverage. And how I love to use this, especially over the summertime, is I will apply the Eaze drop first, and then I will use a longer bristled brush. Like even the Najib Pro from Sonia, I could just whip it on the places that I need a little more coverage so it doesn't look as heavy, right? Even something like this, I'll take the powder foundation and just whip it on. So not only will that set down the tinted moisturizer or the Eaze drop a little bit if I felt like I needed setting, it's still going to give me a little more coverage, but not that powder foundation heavy looking texture that sometimes we might associate with older makeup products that came out initially. Powders can be tricky, especially if you have dry skin, but many people with super dry skin who usually stay away from powder foundation because of those obvious reasons, when they use the Fenty, they were like, whoa, I was not expecting this to work as well as it did. This just melts into my skin, even if it's a powder, lightweight in texture, very silky. And because of that, I've been using it with my other foundations, and I think it a great step if you don't want to use setting powder, if you still needed a little more coverage, but you didn't want your makeup to appear heavy, then the Fenty Beauty Powder Foundation, I think, a great way to not only get that setting benefit, but also a little more coverage while your skin looks still fresh and light, and leaving behind skin that still looks like itself and not overly made up. Now, the second powder foundation on my faves list didn't necessarily come out in 2021, but I was very honored to have collaborated with Muse Beauty Pro and Kett Cosmetics to talk about their FIXX powder foundation. Now, this is industry grade, meaning that the owner of Kett Cosmetics wanted to create a powder foundation that will have skin looking not powdery on camera, on photographs. So the fact that this powder foundation makes my skin look creamy, I don't know what it is. It could be the shea infused mica, which is one of their big selling points in terms of the formulation. It really is remarkable how beautifully this foundation just buffs into the skin. It disappears and it leaves behind almost like a glow, where after you buff it on, not only does it have impeccable coverage, but it doesn't look like I applied a powder foundation. It's crazy. I love how it looks on camera. Even if I use a longer bristled brush, how I spoke about when sometimes applying the Fenty powder foundation, it still looks light on the skin. It gives me a little more coverage. And sometimes I use a darker color as a bronzer, and this is something I learned from Desi Perkins, where if you wanted a little more coverage but you still wanted to sculpt, you would then use a powder foundation. And because foundation types of products by nature are formulated to be more skin-like in finish because it is foundation, not only are you getting a little more coverage in that area, like here I could definitely use more coverage because of my blemishes that are healing. You're going to have more of a skin-like finish that's not going to look powdery that maybe a traditionally formulated powder bronzer will look. Although if it's the LYS bronzer that I spoke about yesterday, that ain't gonna be the case. With that said, there's so many different uses you can have for your powder foundation, whether it's to rely on it for solo coverage or additional coverage or for sculpting, however you want to go with it. I just loved using the Kett powder foundation, and I was not one to use powder foundation for a bit. It was just like weird to me. I was so accustomed to using liquid cream foundations that to use a powder foundation was like, what? The Kett foundation though, smooth, buttery on the skin, and when you buff it on, it leaves behind, like, again, a little bit of a sheen that doesn't look flat as a lot of powder foundations could look on the skin. So this is a great product, and I definitely had to use it with the newly released Wayne Goss Holiday Brush, which is currently sold out. So sorry I'm showing that, my apologies. But even if with another buffing brush, again, smooth. Now here's the product that I was just blown away by. Like the Kett foundation, not new, not newly released in 2021, but I encountered it for the first time in 2021. It is the RCMA 5-part makeup palette. This is so modest in packaging compared to what we've seen before. The Kett is pretty modest in packaging too, but between the AURIC and the Shiseido and the LYS, I mean, this is like, what are we looking at? I freaking love this foundation palette. Again, much like the Kett Cosmetics, industry grade, used by many makeup professionals. The fact that you have 5 different shades to adjust the coloring on your complexion, because we have different tones on our face. We don't just have one color. So you have the options of mixing and matching without having to carry different foundation bottles, jars, or what have you, compacts. It's so smooth on the skin and just melts. It's like butter. And when applying different products on top, all the applications are smooth, they're silky. I just love how my skin looks after I apply the RCMA. It's so satisfying to just buff this cream into your skin and it not look heavy. It just looks like your skin, but better. It has great coverage for my blemishes. I used it to apply my third eye right here. Came back. Remember when it was here? It's now back. I don't know. It delivers that coverage without looking obvious. Again, just melts into those dry patches like no other. And I could nail my skin tone by mixing the different shades in here, and my skin doesn't look flat. So I definitely apply the lighter shades on the center of my face and then go in with the warmer shades on the outer perimeters. And I just think my face looks more harmonious, especially when applying foundation, because usually you just apply one color and it looks very flat, and that's why you rely on cheek products to bring back some dimension, some warmth, some sculpt. You could then create sculpt and warmth just from this foundation palette, and I feel that also encourages a little more creativity, experimentation. If you're one to just rely on one foundation color, maybe this will inspire you to mix and match more often. So I was just so blown away by RCMA. I've heard great things about it, but until I finally used it this year extensively as I have and dove into its benefits and just its beautiful formula. Now, before I move on, you're probably wondering if I'm going to include the Lisa Eldridge foundation. I'm not. And I'll tell you why. The Lisa foundation is beautiful. It is. I do find that I like it better when I cocktail it with other foundations. Whereas with these foundations, I can wear on their own. With the Lisa foundation, if I wear it on its own completely, I did not fall in love with how it wore throughout the day. It looks beautiful on the initial application, but it does this, how do I explain it? Not that it looks dry on the skin, it looks dull on the skin in terms of the texture, which is why I usually mix it either with the Shiseido, with the LYS, definitely with the AURIC I mix it with. But I just wanted to carve out a portion of this video and address the Lisa foundation because I think it might be, I don't know, maybe not, on a lot of people's favorite list, and I didn't want to just disregard it like it didn't happen at all this year. It was probably one of the most highly anticipated foundation releases of the year. The hype surrounding Lisa's foundation was incomprehensible, but when I finally got it and I finally tried it, I think my response was still very excited, and when I still used it, amazing. I mean, the thought process behind the formulation and the bottle design, it all was enchanting. However, it's not my favorite because I end up having to mix it with other foundations. On its own, I wasn't blown away by it. I hope you forgive me. Moving on, going into the pressed palgia category. Not a new product, but probably found on a lot of favorite lists, not for just 2021, but for years prior. The reason why I present it as a favorite this year, that it was during this year for the first time I applied it all over my face versus just under the eyes, and that is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish in 3 Tan. Now, Team Charlotte Tilbury was very nice to send this to me, although I had purchased my own Airbrush Flawless number 2 previously, I just fell back in love with the Airbrush Flawless Finish Powder. It truly is a remarkable formula, one of Charlotte's best, absolutely. I think her foundation products for me are the highest performing. Her eyeshadows are cool, like they're great, okay? But in terms of really transformative benefits, like the Airbrush Flawless, like the bronzers, like a lot of her highlighters, the pressed powders, the Hollywood Flawless filter, I mean, please say no more, Alicia. So to now use the tan all over my skin, I really appreciate it because my skin is drier and the formula does not sit on the skin like traditional powders do. It really just fuses in a way that leaves behind a little more. The tan does give me a little more warmth, which I love, especially some of these foundation shades being a little too light for me still. I can rely on the pressed powder to adjust the shade a little bit, but what's remarkable is just how it doesn't look dry on my skin. It really is that Airbrush Flawless look, really in powder form. Very smooth, so finely milled that you can't see it. If you set your face, forget it. Even more skin-like and finish. It will just melt and you're like, what powder? What powder? So I have been enjoying the Flawless filter for the year. I know it was sent to me during the later half, but because it was just such a potent resurgence for Airbrush Flawless filter love that I had to include it. I had to. Another powder that I think is even more lightweight than the Charlotte is the LYS Triple Fix Translucent Setting Powder. This is in Resilience. This is the universal color, and they have more colors, which I'm actually curious to see how that will look in comparison to Charlotte's tan shade. This is truly, I mean, this powder is so lightweight. I mean, this stuff just disappears on your skin. I was shocked when I tried it for the first time, and I need to use it more often. Again, I get distracted with so many product releases, and which is why I didn't want to get crazy in the foundation category of things for this year. But man, oh man, if it's just the lightweight texture of the powder, and you can feel your skin after, and it just feels like smooth and velvety. And this color especially has such a lovely brightening effect when I apply it on my concealer, which of course, you know, I don't know if Pat McGrath's under eye blurring powder in shade yellow came out in 2021. Did it? Because I use that all the time. I use that all the freaking time. But if I want to change it up, I go with the LYS. Again, just really nice to have on standby, to have a light setting, which I think even lighter than the Charlotte Tilbury powder. So even if you think Charlotte Tilbury's Airbrush Flawless Filter Pressed Powder is too much, then the LYS Triple Fix powder will be just right for you. And the last product I'll present for this list, I almost included it in the cheek product list because the fact that it has cheek products, but you could also use it for the eyes. So where can I put this? I decided to put the Hindash Beautopsy Pigment palette in the complexion category, and let me explain why. If you don't know Hindash, he is a remarkable makeup artist that does just the most beautiful makeup. I do think his eye makeup, for instance, when Hindash does his wing shadow looks, are just heavenly gorgeous. But what's also stand out to me is his skin. The way he does skin, it's just this soft, matte, beautifully blurred skin. I don't know how he does it. He just has such a light touch with makeup application. It's the most perfect dose. He just gets it perfect every time. And because of that, he infused that technique into this pressed pigment palette that yes, you could use it for blush, you could use it for highlight, you could use it for eyeshadow, but you could also use it for your complexion. I use it here for a little bit of contouring and bronzing. I use the lighter matte shade for my highlight, and then I went in with the medium brown and deeper brown shades for my eyeshadow. And of course the blush colors, you have more of like a red coral hue gradient, and then you have more of like a bubblegum pink gradient. It's killer that I could just bring this palette and hit all the tasks, and this is what I have on today. In addition, I have the AURIC combined with the Shiseido today. My apologies, this is in 350 maple. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. I also applied Charlotte's pressed powder, and I also used the RCMA to take care of the blemishes, my brows, of course. And then I just went in with Hindash's powders with the contouring and the blush and the shadow that you see here. Remarkable product, and that's why I included it in the complexion category, because I do think overall it is designed to give you a flawless complexion from eyes to cheeks to face. That was my logic behind it. So you could disagree, I totally get it. It's, for some it might be more of a cheek product palette, I get it, but again, these powders are just so smooth and lightweight, and to have a gradient like this, I mean, this is just a beautiful palette to look at. I think so intelligently thought out, really aligns with Hindash's makeup philosophy and application, and I have to use it more often again with the introduction of Pat's blushes. And I still love me a shiny highlighter. Hindash definitely relies more on like the matte highlight look, which, listen, has a role. Also, if you find yourself having to take photos or being on a video and you cannot have shiny skin but you still need dimension and you still need highlight, well, there you go. And to have the two different blushes, you can combine them, you can really create beautiful gradients. And then to have the gray to brown gradient, I think is my most favorite pan in the palette, because you could go more gray like I did today, or you could go more brown, or you can mix it up and just have that more espresso tone through your crease, and then have like the beige matte on your lid. So there's so many ways you can go with it, and again, you could just rely on the whole palette to create top to bottom. After, of course, you've applied your favorite foundation products, you could use the Hindash Beautopsy palette for cheeks, blush, contour, sculpt, highlight, eyes, all of it. So those are my faves for complexion. I probably missed some things, but come to think of it, I don't think so, because when I try to recollect all my makeup application moments for the duration of 2021, these are the products that I use the most, for sure. And whether it would be seasonally, so I might have used like the Fenty Eaze drop for a number of weeks because of the climate, and then I transitioned into another foundation product and then another. So I think it's normal to rotate through your foundations depending on the season, depending the environment you find yourself in. All that to say, no matter the environment, and I found that I use these products the most for the longest duration of time. And many of you sometimes have complimented how my skin looked, how great it's been looking. Not right now, obviously, but it's because of these products and finding that right harmonious combination in regards to nailing the right skin tone, undertone, finish, adjusting like the satin finish, the soft matte finish, however you dial it, it's just beautiful skin that's left behind. And I truly loved the products that I chose to purchase over the course of 2021. Even the Lisa Eldridge, okay, I still love her, I still include her in the mix. I'm very happy with what I decided to buy in 2021 for complexion. And let me know what your favorites have been during the year, and I will see you tomorrow, because you know what tomorrow is? It's eyeshadow, which is gonna be tough. I'm gonna put more bars on it, be a little more restrictive with the eyeshadow. I'm gonna try. I'll see you down in the comments, fam, and until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial. Best of extravaganza, I'll see you tomorrow. And favors for December, that one is still coming. Take care, and I will see you again soon.